Marie Skłodowska-Curie is a Polish-French physicist and chemist who conducted pioneering research in the field of radioactivity and was awarded the Nobel Prize for her research. His work is so great that I am sure her name will never get old for generations. So, let's start our video now that you have subscribed and liked the video. She was born on November 7, 1867 in Warsaw, Poland. Her father was a physics and mathematics teacher at the Warsaw High School, while her mother was the director of a boarding house for girls. She lived with her sisters in the dormitory where her mother was the manager. Due to the education system in Warsaw, where she lived in her youth, women had to go abroad to go to university or to receive technical education. Her sisters Bronia and Marie worked and saved money, and in 1885 Bronia began studying medicine at the Sorbonne. After graduating, she helped Marie study mathematics and physics. She improved herself by studying at the Polish school, which secretly gave education under the name of the Museum of Industry and Agriculture in Warsaw, until she started her education with her sister in Paris in 1891. When she went to Paris, she continued her education by first staying with her sister and then living in a small attic. She started her education on November 3, 1891, and at the end of a year and a half, she received a physics diploma as the top of her class. In 1894, she received her second diploma in mathematics. Her next goal was to get a teaching diploma and return to Warsaw. In 1894, he met Pierre Curie, who discovered piezoelectricity with his brother Jacques through a Polish scientist. Pierre Curie, 35, was head of the laboratory of the School of Industrial Physics and Chemistry. Thanks to their common scientific interests, Marie and Pierre bonded and got married in July 1895. From this date, she took the name Marie Curie instead of Maria Skłodowska. After receiving her teaching diploma in 1896, she began detailed research on the radiation emitted by uranium salts, later called radioactivity, announced by Henri Becquerel in 1897. But the birth of her first daughter, Irene, in September 1897, interrupted her studies. In the beginning of 1898, Marie, who accelerated her studies again, realized that thorium also emitted these rays. At this point, her wife, Pierre, abandoned her own studies and began to help Marie. In July 1898, the Curies announced that they had discovered a new radioactive element, polonium, which was produced by the radioactive decay of uranium. They named it after Marie's homeland, Poland. In September 1898, they announced the natural radioactive element radium, which the French chemist Eugène Anatole Demarque helped identify by spectroscopy. The couple turned into a great science team, running from success to success. Marie awarded her doctorate in 1904, becoming the first woman in France to receive a doctorate in advanced science. In the same year, she became the first woman in history to receive a Nobel Prize, by receiving the Nobel Prize in Physics, which she shared with her husband and Becquerel, for her research on radioactivity. In 1904, his wife Pierre started teaching at the Sorbonne. She began teaching physics at a girls' school in Marie de Sèvres. Later that year, their second daughter, Eve, was born. At that time, Marie and Pierre began to suffer from radiation sickness. The damage caused by radium to tissue was beginning to be accepted by researchers. At the same time, the idea that the effect of radium could be applied to bad tissues and used in the treatment began to emerge. American inventor Alexander Graham Bell suggested giving radium to the tumor for the treatment of cancer. On April 19, 1906, Pierre Curie died after being hit by a horse-drawn carriage. Widowed with 2 children, Marie continued her husband's teaching job at the Sorbonne and in 1908 became the first female professor at the Sorbonne. It was truly a great success. She was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1911 for her role in the discovery and research of radium and polonium. Thus, she became the first person in history to receive 2 Nobel Prizes. She is still the only woman to win 2 Nobel Prizes. With his studies, he showed that an element could transform into another element after radioactive processes. In addition to these achievements, she was subjected to personal attacks for being a woman. First, the all-male French Academy of Sciences rejected his membership by 1 vote. Then, rumors began to spread that she had a love affair with Paul Langevin. This gossip between Paul Langevin and Marie, married and close friend of Pierre Curie, was reflected in the newspapers as the Langevin scandal, and even Marie's second Nobel Prize was thrown into the background. Marie Curie traveled to Stockholm to receive the Nobel Prize in December 1911. In her speech here, she also stated that she did not underestimate Pierre Curie's help and announced that the hypothesis that radioactivity is a property of the atom was her own work. Returning to France, Marie Curie fell into depression due to the turbulent last year. In 1914, the Radium Institute was established at the University of Paris, and Marie Curie was appointed its first director. Throughout her life, she drew attention to the importance of radium in medicine. During World War I, she made portable X-ray machines and taught X-ray technology to young women with her daughter Irene. They also showed physical therapists how to use radiology equipment in a combat environment. During this time, they were exposed to high doses of radioactive rays. She continued his contribution to science in the 1920s. She played an important role in founding the Radium Institute in Warsaw. She received radium at the newly established laboratory in Warsaw with a $50,000 reward given to him by President Herbert Hoover. During World War I, Curie saw a need for radiological centers in the area near the front lines to assist surgeons on the battlefield. After a quick study in radiology, anatomy, and automotive mechanics, he procured X-ray equipment, instruments, auxiliary generators, and developed mobile radiography units that became popularly known as petites curies. During World War I, Curie saw a need for radiological centers in the area near the front lines to assist surgeons on the battlefield. After a quick study of radiology, anatomy, and automotive mechanics, he procured X-ray equipment, instruments, auxiliary generators, and developed mobile radiography units that became popularly known as petites curies, little curies. In 1915, Curie produced a hollow needle containing the radium squirt, a colorless, radioactive gas emitted by radium, later identified as radon, for use to sterilize infected tissue. She supplied radium from his own single-gram source. It injured more than 1 million soldiers are presumed to have treated him with X-ray units. Busy with this work, she conducted very little scientific research at that time. Despite all his humanitarian contributions to the French war effort, Curie did not receive any official recognition from him by the French government. Led by Curie, Institute she won 4 Nobel Prizes, including her daughter Irina Joliot-Curie and her lawyer son, Frederick Joliot-Curie. She died of blood cancer in Savoy, France, in 1934. Her illness was attributed to her exposure to an overdose of radiation. So she called him the woman who died for science. Because of his radioactivity studies, the radioactivity unit is called Curie. She was buried in the family cemetery in Sceaux after his death, but on April 20, 1995, the graves of Marie Curie and her husband were moved to the Pantheon, the national monumental tomb of France. Despite the academic pressure on women of the period, Marie Curie, who persistently learned science and made the development of science by spreading what she knew, I am sure that her name will be passed on to the next generations with all that she has accomplished, and I am sure that she will live forever. Since you've watched it so far, you can click the subscribe button under the video and like the video. See you in the next video.